Welcome to Lantex Video Interface Edition 15, in which I'll be investigating Compaq's latest announcements and introducing an innovative product from a brand new company.
I'll be bringing you all the news from the industry, including a new standard for CD-ROMs that promises 7.4 gigabytes on a single standard size CD disc.
I'm going to be showing you the printer that created this, and it's not an inkjet and it's not a laser printer. I'll also be talking to one of the sharpest industry watchers around. So it's stop frame index time, stand by the pause button, and if you want to get the timings right, you might like to zero your VCR minutes and seconds counter now. If you remember the days when people used to say, who'd ever need a colour screen on a PC? You may be interested in our first item. You try getting a user to accept a monochrome screen on the desktop today. It's pretty nearly impossible. And the indications are strong that the same thing is now happening with colour printing. Colour printing is not a subject that we've examined before in video interface, mainly because we haven't perceived that the corporate interest has really been strong enough. But all that, we feel, is now changing. Mainly because the use of expensive consumables and special paper is now almost a thing of the past. With us to talk about colour printing is Tektronix expert Mark Lloyd. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Mark, we've seen briefly the output of this wonderful printer that you've brought with us. If it's not a laser, and it really looks like one to me, and it's not an inkjet, what is the technology?
The technology is phase change or solid ink technology. That's a solid ink stick, and this is where you actually put the ink stick. If you'd like to insert it into the blue chamber.
Okay. Well, I can see it's blue, but I can also see there's shape.
It
so
is
there's only one slot I can put it into.
It's shape coded
so I drop it in.
for ease of use.
Simple as that.
So the way the printer actually works is you have a solid wax ink stick that melts within the printer. Once melted and you've sent an image to the printer, it then puts this image onto a drum and then puts it onto a piece of paper. And really it is as straightforward as that. A very quick, clean and fast technology.
Right. So the print quality, I presume, is very similar to the thermal wax transfer sort of printers that Tektronix have been known for.
It's actually moved on from there. With the thermal transfer technology, you had ribbons, which are made up of A4 panels. Here you've got a solid wax technology, which one allows you to actually print on many types of paper stock as well, and is much, much simpler to actually use. You just drop a wax stick into the printer and see.
Okay. What about things like routine maintenance and cleaning? Because that seems very simple, but even with a laser printer that you get little cotton bits to white bits with and so forth.
Indeed,
what's the routine on a printer like this?
It is actually very straightforward. Apart from the 4 ink sticks, you have a maintenance tray, which is as easy as this to change. This is for lubricating the drum and also for collecting waste ink from the printer. They're the only consumable items that are within the printer that can actually be changed by really any user. There's no expertise really needed to do that. If you can actually load your stapler at the office, you can load inks into the machine. Okay. Tektronix are in a unique position really, because you have printers in all the 5 areas of colour printing technology that there now is. I mean, there's inkjet, there's laser, there's this technology, there's dye sublimation and thermal wax. Did I get them all right? I believe so, yes.
Okay. Give us a quick rundown, if you will, of all those 5 technologies that are on the market now and the pros and cons of each, because people are trying to make decisions about this sort of thing right now, aren't they?
There certainly is. I mean, there's no one product that really fits everyone's needs at the moment, but it is starting to move towards that. You really start off with inkjet, which is the most common printer really around today. It's your entry level into colour, very low capital costs for as little as £300, but not really seen as a network device. You then move to thermal wax transfer printers, which have been the most popular technology, as it were, today in the office environment for overhead transparency printing. If you're printing onto an acetate, thermal wax has been the best technology for projecting, and also with its fixed running cost and very fast speeds. If you want photographic quality, there's one technology that will do that, which is dye sublimation, and that will give you photographic output on a desktop colour printer.
At what sort of cost
That's
per page?
Perhaps the only drawback of dye sublimation that is expensive to run. It's about £2.50 a copy to actually print,
right?
But you get the output at the end of it. You then got colour laser. Now, colour laser is another technology that is getting a lot of interest from the customers and the press at the moment, with the launch of a number of new products, also one from Tektronix. With colour laser, you've got laser quality on the desktop, the plain paper, and also laser speed. And it's a technology that is fairly well known to most users out there from printing with monochrome printers. You then come to this technology, which is phase change, which perhaps is even more flexible. Because of its lack of consumable items, it's only got 4 ink sticks and a maintenance tray, colour lasers still have a few more accessories that need changing on the product. So this technology being even more flexible on paper, it will literally print all the way up to cardstock, which you can't actually do on a colour laser today. Right. And also it will print on recycled paper, even very heavily embossed paper. It will not have a problem with actually printing on that. So it's very flexible on its paper stocks.
Right. Okay, so there's a strong argument for this sort of a machine for corporate use. But still, let's be honest, it is still an expensive machine. I suppose in real terms it's probably not much more than a 300 dpi laser printer was when they first came out, but nevertheless it's a big step up from a monochrome laser cost. So people are going to want to connect it to everything that is around. So what are the connectivity options on this sort of machine?
With the product you get a bidirectional parallel port on it now, which allows you two-way information. On top of that you can add in Ethernet, which supports Novell, Macintosh and TCP/IP, and you also have a token ring connector that will be coming for the printer. So there is networkability is very, very straightforward, and it will connect into most customers' environments. It will also switch between those protocols as well on the network, so you can share it from your Macintoshes and your PCs on the one network.
Oh, right. Yes, that's something that I personally could do. I'm the only person in the company that has a Macintosh. Okay. I think what we'd like to do now really is to see it print something. I know we've got to actually connect this to a PC and put some paper in and so forth. So whilst we're doing that, let's join Michael Wade for a few moments.
With many of us having or soon to have access to CD-ROM at our desktop, a company called Infobank have brought to market an innovative product which gives us access to business information and business services. With us to talk about their product is John Williams, Marketing Director.
Hello.
Hi John. John, before we see the product, tell us, Infobank, I like the name, who are you?
Well, Infobank is a group of people that comprise software specialists, publishing specialists and new brand development specialists.
And Infobank have brought to market a product which has CD-ROM as the vehicle, but it's more than CD-ROM, you've told me.
Correct, yes. It's a product that actually combines the benefits of CD-ROM, and it's complemented by an online service and brings to the desktop a vast range and choice of products for the end user to actually be able to select and buy different services and different brands.
All right, so you're going to show us some.
Indeed. Let me give you first of all a quick cook's tour of the corporate collection. And what I'm going to do first of all is take you along this top bar, which are the fast start buttons. The first section is software, where it's categorized in 12 different areas. We then have information, which is general information, including things like a contact finder, which allows you to find different sorts of organisations. And you notice there's also a conference and exhibition diary there. Eventually you'll be able to print out your ticket for an exhibition, as well as find out when they're actually on. The next button is what we call handy facts. This is the sort of things you find in the front of a diary, including golf courses. Next button is business services. These are products that are for the day-to-day running of a business, and it ranges from Orange mobile phones, Dun & Bradstreet credit checks, Royal Mail, office supplies, books and videos.
The Dun & Bradstreet credit check, for example, how does that work actually?
Well, it works in two ways. On the CD-ROM, you have the actual full Dun & Bradstreet credit register, which you can interrogate, and you can buy a particular report of a company. But you can also link to D&B in the next edition online and get a real live, up-to-the-minute picture of a particular company.
Okay, so this is the combination that you were telling me about.
That's correct.
Okay.
And it's very important, particularly in that area, because most people never check their suppliers or their customers. We've made it easy for that to be done.
Right.
The next button is Director Services, and this is for products that are involved with the strategic movement of the business. Now, one of the areas that we bring in, because people often do not know what sort of products they've got on their PC, is our Upgrade Advisor. Now, because we know what products we have in our corporate collection, we can run an interrogation of somebody's PC using the Upgrade Advisor, and we can actually then advise them what they've got on their system and what their upgrade can be to. So for example, if they've got Excel 4, we can advise them they can upgrade to Excel 5. But we can be smarter than that, because we can also advise them that there's a book and there's a video that they can also get to. We also have 800 different hardware products from PCs all the way through to tape streamers, backed up by Lantec services who provide all the technical know-how, the installation for that particular area. So any particular product that is required there can be very easily not only ordered, but can also be delivered and installed.
All right. I need obviously to ask you just a little bit more about Lantec and how we're being partnered with yourself.
Yes.
Are you saying that I can actually simply look on this catalogue, choose my product and order it?
That's correct, yes. But more than that, if you, for example, then want that to be installed, if you want it to be from a network solution, then Lantec will come along and actually help to put that product in. So it's not just I'm ordering something from a catalogue and that's it, there's no support. Lantec, as you know, provide very good and very effective technical support for the products. So we see this as a major benefit to customers because it's not just ordering off the page, it's ordering a total service.
Right, okay. And that kind of totality of service is offered in some of the other areas as well, is it? You mentioned Orange, for example.
Yes, I mean, with all of the products on here, we provide lots of different ways by which people can actually obtain products and get the technical support and service and backup and customer service to actually use those products efficiently.
All right.
The next area is online. At the moment, this links to our database and gives you up-to-the-minute pricing, but as I mentioned earlier, in the next edition, you will actually see Dun & Bradstreet, and you'll be able to actually connect to Dun & Bradstreet via us and get the latest credit information and other services. We then have a product which is called the Showcase area, where we have Agencies Showcase, details of agencies, and Windows Showcase, which covers reviews of 600 different Windows products. These next two buttons are then navigation buttons, and then the final button is something which we've had a lot of requests from customers for, is the corporate button. Here we can tailor the look of the interface to the needs of a particular organisation. Mm-hmm. So for example, if you wanted to make your annual report available to people within the organisation, you can actually do that with this particular service. So it's a means by which you can improve internal communications, and you can include on there everything from your purchase order, your corporate identity, and you control, using our system, who actually accesses the particular areas.
Right. Now that last idea of control, that's going to be important to a number of people. They've got loaded on the server, I guess, the complete set of the CDs with the corporate collection on it. Can somebody within the organisation then decide who has access to various parts of the collection?
Yes, in actual fact, the way that this is very much a very comprehensive information service that actually provides people with a wealth of information about products, but they can actually use this service to actually buy something, but it can be bought with control. So the purchasing department would set up with us particular procedures, for example, to say, only these people can order. It has to be on this purchase order, or it can't. These sorts of products can't actually be bought because of company policy. So we can actually fit in very much to what a corporate needs in terms of purchasing.
Good.
Now, I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we try to do is to show and provide our customers with a wealth of information. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to find another product which is very typical of the range of products that we have on here, because as I mentioned, it's a very broad number of products, over 1,500 products from 80 suppliers and increasing all the time. So let's see if we can find Orange, because I'm interested in a mobile phone. So I put it into the find box and ask the computer to find it, and it gives me all instances of Orange. And as you can see, there's a lot of Orange products that I can actually purchase. The corporate collection will just jump me to that particular point, and then I can actually look at information about Orange and decide perhaps that's the sort of thing that I actually want to purchase. Now you will notice that again I've got lots of other products I can look at. I've got manufacturer's notes, and here I've got the brochure and catalogue. And I'm going to fire this one up, partly because it happens to be one of my favourite brochures. So here I'm interested in Orange phones, so let's have a quick look at some further details. Perhaps I want to know about the phones. Well, I can use this electronic brochure to actually look at information on the particular phone. So this will show me the two types of orange phone I can buy.
Right.
By clicking on each of the pictures, I can get further information about that. I can also look at the price plans, so I can see what sort of time I can actually purchase for a particular amount per month. And also, perhaps I'm in the north of England and I wonder if it actually does reach me in that part of the world. Well, again, I can look at the map to see exactly where Orange is currently located. So
Right.
what our aim is to provide the customer with a wealth of information about the product so they can make a really informed choice. Plus, also, we are actually providing a very competitive service in terms of price. So our prices are updated on a daily basis, so if you actually want to get a competitive price, we can provide that as well.
Okay, and again, the customer, having taken their time to browse through all the information without any pressure, decides to buy and contacts Infobank.
That's correct, yes. I mean, we will take an order that can contain everything from software, information, a book, a video, a market research report, and we will then provide those goods to the customer, some instantly because they can be unlocked electronically from the disk, others will arrive by courier the following day or as soon thereafter. You don't have to wait for the superhighway, that's going to come in years from now. You can have the benefits of electronic shopping today very easily, very conveniently on your desktop.
John, it's terrific, I think. I hope our viewers think so too. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks very much.
And now, back to Steve.
Well, while you've been watching Infobank with Michael Wade, we've been printing things over here. We've done another copy of this page that you saw earlier. Mark, what is, first of all, is the definition of this page?
This is actually printed at 600 by 300 dpi.
Right. The speed I know is quite certainly impressive to get the first page out, because I can verify that this page started coming out of the printer about 30 seconds after we hit print. But how many pages a minute would this printer do at this definition?
It will actually print at 2 pages a minute at 600 dpi mode. It'll even print up to 4 pages a minute if you move to 300 dpi resolution.
Right. And cost for a page with that much colour coverage?
Cost of that is actually 13p.
1.3.
1.3.
Okay, just check we understand. Can you compare that with the other technologies? A page like that printed in inkjet laser and so on? Okay,
if you printed it out on a thermal transfer printer, you'd be looking at a fixed running cost of 47p. If you printed it on dye sublimation, probably nearer £2 to £2.50.
Right.
If you printed it on colour laser, maybe up to about 19p. And then if you print it on an inkjet printer, it will potentially be about the same sort of pricing, perhaps even a little bit more expensive, because each of the ink heads often have a plastic encasing head around them.
Right. But clearly this has the edge on inkjet, certainly, well, more than the edge, it has a big lead in quality.
In terms of quality, yes.
I'd like the cameras to actually get a close-up of this page, which is the other one that we've just printed, because I think that is absolutely beautiful, and it certainly shows without a shadow of a doubt the quality that colour printing has now achieved. Mark Lloyd, we're very grateful to you for coming and talking to us about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now, with a roundup of all that's new in the microcomputer industry, here's Alison Ball.
Hello. Lots of extra details on captions this month, so watch for the pause symbol and stand by the remote control if you want to read more. Compaq get the top spot in the news this month simply because there are so many announcements from the company. In February they announced 2 new servers, the Prosignia 300 in a mini tower format and the ProLiant 1500 in both tower and rack models. Both servers feature PCI architecture and Pentium processors. There are new additions to the options too, which include 4.3GB disk drives. At the same time, Compaq also announced 2 new models of the 75MHz Elite notebook, one with a 9.5-inch STN colour display and one with a 10.4-inch TFT display. Both models are in free supply. In March, Compaq added 2 new models of the ProLiant 1500 featuring the new Intel 120MHz Pentium processor. Further server announcements are expected in this month. Many new desktop models were also launched. This is arguably the most wide-ranging series of announcements Compaq have ever made. In order to understand the changes not only in the models but also in the strategy, Michael Wade will be speaking with Compaq's Commercial Desktop Products Manager in a few minutes, so keep watching. In March, Toshiba introduced their T2100 range. The details are on screen now. Prices start at $1195 and availability is good. Hewlett-Packard announced 4 new printers in March, some of which are however not shipping until next month. Here are 2 captions with the details, but briefly, the DeskJet 540 replaces the DeskJet 520 and 500C, the DeskJet 660 replaces the DeskJet 560C, and there is a new mid-range inkjet also announced, the DeskJet 850C. Finally, the DeskJet 1600C is the top-of-the-range inkjet aimed at laser printer users who need colour. And there's a PostScript version as well. Intel have made a technology announcement about the P6, the successor to the Pentium. Intel say the P6 will deliver superior performance through an innovation called dynamic execution. It will provide support for enhanced data integrity and reliability and includes features that will greatly simplify the design of multiprocessing systems. The first member of the P6 processor family integrates about 5.5 million transistors on the chip, compared to approximately 3.1 million transistors on the Pentium processor. It will operate at 133 MHz, delivering performance that will scale up to 1000 MIPS with 4 processors. The P6 will arrive in desktops and servers before the end of this year. Several announcements from IBM include that of a new notebook computer. On opening the ThinkPad 701, the biggest surprise comes first. In a machine smaller than A4 size is a full-size QWERTY keyboard. The keyboard is split and the 2 halves ingeniously spread and interlock to form a comfortable 85-key keyboard, nearly 2 inches wider than the PC itself. Add a bright 10.4-inch TFT screen and the portable user's wish list is just about fulfilled. Prices from your Lantec account manager. Video interface reaches people in quite a large number of the NHS trusts, so take note that the radiology vocabulary is now released for the IBM personal dictation system. You will no doubt remember Françoise Moreau-Johnson demonstrating this system for video interface last summer. This product follows the announcement of the legal vocabulary last November. Just released is the long-awaited Delphi product from Borland. Borland have been understandably quiet for a while, but expect big noises about this development tool. Delphi is a next-generation tool combining and optimizing native code compiler, scalable database access to SQL, Paradox and DBase, plus a complete component-based visual development environment. A lot of Borland's future hangs on the success of new announcements, and Delphi actually won 1 award before it shipped. Byte Magazine's Best of Comdex award, so we'll see what happens. Novell have announced the addition of voice messaging to GroupWise, the electronic messaging component of its Groupware range of products. Voice messages may now be accessed and managed like any other type of data. Users can now receive, listen to and respond to voice messages from their personal computer, laptop or telephone. GroupWise is designed to complement current voicemail systems and also takes advantage of the text-to-speech technology first introduced in Groupware. As mentioned at the start of the programme, details are emerging of the new Sony Philips standard for high-density CD-ROMs, HDCD. The new format stores 3.7 GB on a regular size CD-ROM and allows for the disc to be double-sided. That's an amazing 7.4 GB per disc. Even a single-sided disc will be able to hold 135 minutes of near broadcast quality MPEG-2 video, using a new variable rate data transfer technology. This allows between 1 and 10 megabits per second to be streamed off the disc. With read-writable drives in the offing, Sony and Philips say the new format could prove to be the VCR of the future. As with all proposed standards, there is of course a competitor, this time from an alliance between Time Warner, Toshiba and Matsushita. We at Lantec, however, consider that the likely take-up of the Philips-Sony standard by IBM, Compaq, Microsoft and Apple will tip the balance in their favour. Expect the first double-sided drives about a year from now. In Brussels on February 25th and 26th, government ministers from 11 leading industrial nations met at the European Commission to discuss the information society and to agree on principles to make the global information infrastructure a reality. The keynote address was given by American Vice President Al Gore. IBM sponsored an internet magazine, G7 Live, featuring transcripts of the key speeches. Naturally, we were reading them as the decisions made here will affect all our futures. If you're interested in receiving a précis of the best, contact us on the internet or via CompuServe mail and we'll forward them to you. And finally, 2 items concerning ourselves. Firstly, Lantec announced a strategic partnership with ExecuTrain, the world's largest software training company. With 125 offices worldwide, they provided training for over 700,000 people last year. All courses are guaranteed, following which telephone support and refresher courses are free. Contact Landtech for more details. Secondly, we are pleased to announce that we have now completed testing of our recently installed EDI system. We have upgraded our AS400 and invested in the core software and modules that allow us, for example, to transmit invoices directly to our customers. Landtech are now on both the IBM and Geist TraderNet networks, complying with the TraderCom's EDI standard. Call our MIS or Finance department if you'd like more details of how EDI can cut costs and make it easier to deal with Landtech. And that's the highlights of what's going on in the microcomputer industry in April 1995. Now, as promised, Michael Wade discovers what's behind Compaq's recent announcements. Michael.
Thank you, Alison. On March the 8th, Compaq made their most important series of announcements ever. They claim this importance in terms of the number of new products. In the UK it was 42 new systems, the new product strategies they are implementing, and the 70% of their business on which there will be an impact. Given Compaq's market leadership, we decided that Video Interface should examine these claims, so we've invited along Compaq's Commercial Desktops product manager, David Moore. Welcome, David.
Hello, Michael.
David, let's start with the products. This is rather more than a refresh of the ProLinear range, isn't it?
Absolutely. We've taken the original ProLinear concept, which was to deliver good value for money in a basic no-frills computer, and completely re-engineered it. We've increased the wide range of the processors that are available, going now from DX250 up to 100 megahertz Pentium in what was essentially a value line product before. We've also increased dramatically the performance. We've done this through adding things like PCI, local bus architecture, and increasing the flexibility of all the subsystems around the processor. So not only do you get a very fast processor, but you're getting up to 64-bit graphics solutions on the PCI local bus, and a local bus PCI IDE controller as well. So the whole system performance has been raised up to a new level.
All right. And have you standardized in terms of the way the systems come to market, disk sizes and so on?
What we've done is we've produced effectively 3 disk options, 270, a 420 and a 720 megabyte drives. So these are newer, faster drives that are available today. Effectively, we've allowed a wide range of these larger hard drives to be spread across 3 new form factors. So not only do you get more storage in the hard drive itself, but if you're looking for planning for future expansion, for example, you can buy now a 4-slot 4-bay product in a desktop form factor, as well as a standard 3-slot 3-bay slimline ProLinear type product, which would have been available before. We've also added a full range of mini tower products as well. So if you want to have like 5 slots and 5 bays for adding tape drives and CD-ROMs, etc. at a later date, then you can now get all of those choices in a wide range of processors and hard drive sizes in the new range.
Right.
So it's really giving people a lot more choice.
And this ProLinear range is now performance intensive as far as you're concerned with PCI and so on.
It is. The reason we've really raised the performance of the ProLinear family so much is because that the software that people are using today is becoming increasingly complex, not only more demanding on the processor and the subsystems, but also larger, which is the reason for the larger hard drives as well.
Right.
So we're looking at producing a product now which will last for the next 4 or 5 years on somebody's desk and still be giving, at the end of its life cycle, adequate performance for the demands of the business software they're using.
Right.
So effectively, we've doubled the performance on a processor for processor comparison between the new and the old ProLinear families. The new ProLinear family is actually twice as fast.
Good. So if that's the ProLinear, weren't Despros the performance range before? What have you done with the Despros?
You're right, the Despros used to be our performance-led products, and there still is at the top end the Despro XL, which is very much a performance-oriented machine. But what we've done with the middle-tier Despro products, which used to be the Despro XE, is we've engineered those for use in mature networking environments. Again, looking at the trends that customers are using these products in, we felt that there was a definite synergy between the Despro requirement for more performance and also the increasing percentage of customers using them in networked environments. And what we've done is to try and take these products away from just being network ready and being a ProLinear with a network card installed, which is what most of our competitors have done, and which in previous generations of products we've also achieved. To really design the products for use in a network environment and to dramatically lower the cost of ownership.
Right. And is there anything more in terms of manageability that you've done with the Desk Pros?
Effectively, we've taken the network-ready concept, which is a machine with a network interface built in, and extended that with a new strategy we're calling intelligent manageability.
Right.
This is really designed to tackle the cost of ownership by making the products easier to manage and also more fault tolerant. What we've done is we've taken some of the concepts from our server class products, the Proliance and Prosignius people may be familiar with, things like Insight Manager, our management tools, fault predicting hard drives, and brought them down onto the desktop products. Really the intelligent manageability is trying to tackle cost of ownership in two essential areas. The first is to try and help people maintain control of their assets. So probably one of those backroom tasks which nobody doesn't get terribly excited about, but a very costly exercise for companies, to try and track at least once a year for their annual accounts the assets of their computers, but also to try to manage them in terms of probably upgrade planning, software distribution, whether the products are capable of taking new software up revisions and upgrades, and also to try and maintain the assets in a lot more detail than was previously available, rather than going around and manually tracking them with a piece of paper and a pad, to be able to access them remotely over the network and get information like the machine model, make, serial number, system board revision level. You can even access the monitor make and serial number as well. So quite a lot of very, very detailed information, useful for both asset management in terms of the financial aspects, and also in terms of for the network manager as well, planning software and hardware upgrades.
All right, so give me just a final example of the way the manageability and the fault tolerance combined could be useful for the IS manager.
Well, if you were to think of a case of a potential hard disk failure or any potential service event, with the desktop intelligent manageability, the hard drive will be able to tell both the user of the machine and the network manager 72 hours before it fails that it's likely to have a failure. And then what that will allow the network manager to do is to look through the asset management information on that product to be able to ascertain exactly which hard drive is in that machine, not only what size, but what serial number, what ID number, and what the manufacturer was, so that when, for example, they might call Lantec out to do a service call on that machine, the service engineer will arrive with exactly the right part, know exactly the contact details of the machine that they've got to go and service, where it is, and who's responsible for it. So it really speeds up the whole of the service event and makes it much simpler and therefore more cost effective.
Okay, that's a striking example of manageability. So you've clearly done a great deal in terms of the products, in terms of the strategies that underlie the way you've brought those to market. I've been reading of some other initiatives. One was the Desktop Management Task Force. That's an attempt at some standardization. Have you moved away from that? Have you raced ahead of the Desktop Management Task Force?
Well, we actually are members of the steering committee of the Desktop
Really?
Management Task Force, and firmly believe that DMI, or the Desktop Management Task Force, will be the ultimate tool for managing desktops, primarily because it's designed to combine not only just new systems, but all legacy systems as well. It relies, however, on a software layer, which is added to the machine after manufacture to address well-known addresses on the system's BIOS or CMOS. So effectively, all machines we ever made are DMI compliant, and all of the new products we're producing now are also DMI compliant. What we've tried to produce today is a pragmatic solution by removing one of the problems with DMI, which is that at a local level on the PC itself it's been standardized, but there are no management tools to access that remotely, certainly no standard management tools, and the Desktop Management Task Force has not yet agreed the protocols for doing that. So at the moment you cannot manage remotely a DMI or using DMI a PC workstation. Our solution has been to not only provide this information, generating it electronically on the PC itself so you don't have to enter it in manually, but also to integrate with the 10 leading software vendors in the world providing management software solutions. So people like Microsoft with SMS, or Sabre with LAN Workstation, Monitrix from Cheyenne, etc. that are already well-established management tool providers to provide an actual working system. So intelligent manageability is a feature and a current benefit for customers, whereas DMI is effectively a feature which will become a benefit eventually, probably towards the end of 1996. And we will fully integrate all of our intelligent manageability functionality into DMI as well. So they're not exclusive.
Right, good. So desktop conformance as far as Compaq's concerned.
Absolutely. We don't intend to set new standards with this, set new industry standards with this particular initiative. We're attempting to deliver more value today in a pragmatic fashion for our customers.
Absolutely.
And then complying, as we need to do, with all the future larger scale industry trends as well.
Mm-hmm. Finally, Steve would probably say, I have to ask you this one. We're notorious in this industry for bringing products to market or announcing them, but not having them available. How have you tackled that this time around at Compaq?
I think I would agree with Steve's comments, and certainly Compaq has an unenviable reputation for having a similar problem with product introductions. This time around, we've actually been very, very cautious in planning this transition as professionally as we could. This time around, we took a very aggressive stock position on our current product ranges so that we could ensure that we could maintain volume commitments to people already engaged in rollout programs, or that had standardized on a particular product, so that they'd have adequate time to evaluate the new products and for us to ramp up production. So we've managed so far to be able to transition from a very major transition from about 70% of our business quite smoothly by maintaining availability of our existing products and very quickly ramping up the production of the new products, which are many of them freely available now.
Right, good. David, it's been very interesting indeed to hear about these new announcements from you. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks, Michael.
Our special guest for this edition is not known for keeping his opinions to himself. In fact, he makes his living out of broadcasting them to a wider variety of people as possible. I admit to entering this interview with a certain amount of trepidation, as I have no idea what he's going to say, so whilst I wing it, would you please meet Guy Kewney, Editorial Fellow, Ziff Davis PC Magazine. Hello, Guy.
Hello, Steve, if that's your name.
It is. I was going to ask you about your job title, though. Editorial Fellow is a very strange title. How did you come by that?
Strange? How can you mean strange, Steve? It's a perfectly obvious title. Well, there is a story behind it. Last time I sat in a studio with you was an unconscionably long time ago. And in those days I worked for PCW, and shortly after that Ziff Davis launched PC Magazine in the UK and flattered me by asking me to join them. And the question arose as to what my title should be. They wanted me to work not just for PC Mag, but also at that time for PC Direct, and for any other titles they might or might not launch in the future. And of course, we've got a new launch coming up next week of Computer Life, so I now work for 3 titles in the group. So I couldn't be the editor of any of the magazines because I work for all of them. And they said, we'd like to make you contributing editor. Now, if you're not a journalist, you won't understand what the term means, but contributing editor means somebody we occasionally call in and might pay, right? So I said, no, I've been working for 3 other titles, and they've always dignified me with the title of editor-in-chief, so you can call me editor-in-chief. And they said, well, tricky, because we have one. So I said, okay, fine, I'll come up with a better idea. You don't give me a title, you just bill me as Guy Kewney. And you know, there might be 1 or 2 people who know who I am, and the rest can read the stuff and decide whether it's important. And they said, you've got to have a title. We think contributing editor. I said, no, I don't think so. They said, well, got to have a title. I said, if I think of a title, will you use it? And they said, yes. I said, fellow. Now, it's an American-owned company where the title of fellow carries a lot of weight. So they, instead of laughing out loud and saying, go home and take a bath, Kewney, they said, okay, and rented it, which is unfortunate for my colleague, Peter Jackson, who is the other editorial fellow. He came into work one day and was given business cards saying Peter Jackson, editorial fellow, and he's never lived it down.
I wish I hadn't asked, really. Guy, let me pick your brains about the industry, because that's what we're really here to do. Fascinating though that answer was. Let's talk about CDs. We've seen something on CDs, or about CDs in particular, in the programme today. We've also heard in the news about the new HD CD standard. Tell us about your view of the rise of the CD.
It's quite interesting, that, isn't it? Colleague of mine, Steve Malone, came to me about 2.5 years ago and said, your columns are boring, I'd like you to write something interesting this month. Could you do something on the rise of the software order off the disk stuff? And I said, what? And he then proceeded to unveil something which he got, which has all come true, that you buy a big CD free and you buy the software off it by feeding a key into it later. And so I got quite a reputation for having seen the future there when all I was doing what the editor had told me. What I did, though, notice was that the established computer companies weren't putting CD drives in their machines, and the newcomers, people like Gateway, were, and that this was their secret weapon. They were seeing their sales boom, whereas the old established people were not. They were getting relatively left behind. And it became apparent that the CD would become a standard piece of equipment for more than half the installed new base quite quickly. It's now reached the point where when we do a front cover giveaway, we don't think of doing the floppy disk, we only do a CD, and we have it very thoroughly organized. And the reason is that we can assume that our readers have a CD. Now, the interesting thing for me is, obviously, there were some people who said it would never catch on because 600 megabytes is the end of the world, and we now know that there are ways of increasing that density, which is crucial. There are two things that I find fascinating, and the most obvious one is that you're going to see a tremendous integration between the compact disk published data and the online networks. And so you'll get people saying, here is our published database on this disk, but we have online some up-to-date stuff, so whenever you query the disk with your software and it doesn't find the answer, it will automatically go off, make a connection, and come back.
Sure.
And of course, if you're on the internet, it will do that almost invisibly and quickly, seamlessly. The other thing is actually rather more fun. You'll have noticed that in the last 3 months, everybody who does a notebook has announced that they either have or will have a version of their notebook that doesn't have a floppy drive but has a CD instead.
We've heard about a few of them recently, yes.
Indeed. And I think the point is that not just that people are now starting to put CDs in portables, but that you have to ask yourself, what's the good of a floppy disk? Now, I was sitting this afternoon with this very disk in my office, right? And somebody said to me he would give me a piece of software in exchange for something else, both stuff we'd pulled off the internet. So I put this in his machine and read it, and I put it in my machine, and it came up and it said, not ready, data error. And I would quite like a pint of beer for every time that's happened to me in the last 6 months. And the reason is very simple. These days, if I sell you a piece of software or buy a piece of software from you, or if we just swap data, we're most likely to do it on a wire, and we're least likely to do it on a floppy. The reasons for doing it on a wire are obvious. If it goes and it gets stuck, the retry is instantaneous. If you give me this disk, well, I'll give it to you. You can take it home.
Thank you.
You'll get home and you'll find that it doesn't work.
Right.
There's nothing you can do about it until tomorrow. When you ring me up and you say, Guy, can I have another diskette? I'll give you that. And you may get home and find it still doesn't work, because if you don't use your floppy disk very often, it goes out of alignment. If it goes out of alignment, well, it's okay for you because you're reading and writing the same things. But of course, you give it to somebody else and it won't. And increasingly that happens. I think we can now start saying that within 2 years, a floppy disk will look like an antique device. And within 4 years, nobody will bother installing the drives. Just a feeling.
Well, your feelings I tend to trust. Let me ask you about another subject, and that is the whole concept of network printing. I know you have some views on this. I've heard you before, so I'd like our viewers to hear this as well.
Well, you were talking about this rather nice Tektronix thing earlier. This
Indeed.
Amazing wax printer. Now, it's a lovely machine, and the price is wonderful for that sector of the market, but you and I would never buy one for our home use.
I couldn't afford one.
Because we couldn't afford one. So you would put one on the network in the office. Your purchasing manager would scream, turn pale, and sign the check, and you would have good color access to the network. Now, it's astonishing how many people bought printers for that sort of personal use, but shared it with their colleagues who are now wishing they hadn't. You know, it's the interesting thing is that if you look at the use of most networks, they've been set up by techies who know the network as a cyberspace zone. And you've got a printer called Gertie and another printer called Princess Di, or Printer Di perhaps.
Yes.
And great, they're all there, but where? And most people are starting to find that they have 50 printers in the building. They've just printed out a confidential assessment of their boss, or their boss's boss. They've printed it, and for God's sake, it's gone and been printed in a locked up cupboard in the accounts department where nobody will be able to get in except their boss tomorrow morning. This could be somewhat embarrassing.
Yes.
If they can find out where the printer is and they can get it out, they know what they'll find there. They'll get there and they'll find a little sign on the thing saying PC load letter, because they're using American software which is not set to use A4 stationery, and so the printer needs resetting. So until you can get there, everybody's printing is stacking up. And what people increasingly want is a personal printer. So I think you're going to find that although there is a market for the networkable, expensive printing resource thing, there is going to be much more focus over the next year for the personal printer. Inkjet mostly, around £200, £300, You're going to see a big boom in that area. Not because people don't want printers on the network. In fact, I can think of a very good time when you do want a printer on the network, and that's when you print. You go over to your printer, which is the nearest one, which you know it's called Flossy, and you always print to Flossy, and it says toner low, paper out, or best of all, PC load letter.
Yes.
Or some other inscrutable thing. And that's when you do want to be able to say, okay, ignore Flossy and go to Gertrude.
Yes.
But otherwise, you want your own printer, and I think people will get them.
Okay. 4 years ago, you advised me to get an account on CompuServe.
True.
I ignored your good advice, and I only got on CompuServe about a year ago. I wish I had taken your advice 4 years ago, because I've only recently found out what a wealth of information there is in these sorts of places. With the internet coming along and people trying to make money through the internet and the other information providers, how's it all going to develop if you can do that in a few minutes of talk?
Well, how it's going to develop is easy. It's going to grow. Who will make money from it is a much more difficult question. I was looking at some research predictions. Do you know O'Reilly Associates, an American-based, Canadian-based company? Very big over there. They do a lot of publishing of internet software and books, and they also do a lot of consulting about the internet. And they recently asked for people to share with them a market research project. And this market research project is to go out and find out who uses the internet today. Now, it's one of the fundamental things of any sort of publishing operation is you have to know who your market is and who your readers are. And the fact of the matter is that apart from a one-off academic bit of research which suggests that there are more people of this age than that, and they're mostly all around the world and they're mostly quite clever, there is no demographic information, there's no any information about the internet. O'Reilly said they're doing this, and they would say this because they're asking people to help contribute to the funds.
Sure.
But nonetheless, it seems quite clear that they are quite right in saying that there is no information about the internet today. There are lots of people out there using it. Now, exactly who these people are and how long they'll be using it is a question I would hate to ask, because I think I know some of the answers, and it's quite embarrassing. I was over in Boston a couple of months ago chatting to Banyan, and the boss of Banyan was saying, I better not say which of the bosses because he might actually not want to go on the record with us, but he was saying one day he is going to ring up all the people he knows who have an internet presence, and he's going to send them a little wodge of stuff like this, of all the contributions which have cluttered up the airwaves from their senior people. And he's going to say, do you realise that 3/4 of your staff are spending 8 hours a day on the internet, and don't you think they should get back with their jobs and do some work? And he says, at that point, a lot of the people who are providing all the value for the internet are just going to disappear. There's no way their companies would tolerate them disseminating all this free information, support and wisdom when they actually have work to do. These guys justify it, of course, on the grounds that it's research. So it is, but it's research they can do other ways. What is clear at this moment is that if you want to go and get general information, you're better off in a more controlled environment than on the internet. So yes, I said join CompuServe because it has a direct line to an awful lot of people. Any forum you happen to know will be supported by the senior people. In the UK, there are rival things. There's going to be UK Online, there is CompuLink. Again, they tend to have the movers and shakers in them, but they tend to be very organized by comparison with the internet. The trouble with the internet is, yes, you can't ignore it. Intel was saying to me the other day that they are still paying the penalty for ignoring the internet because they weren't aware of the anger and rage that was building up about the floating point errors on their Pentium. It was all on the internet, they were ignoring it. Actually, that's silly because Intel knew perfectly well the anger and rage was building up. They just thought they could bluster their way out of it. But it's a good excuse from Intel's point of view. The fact of the matter is that at the moment, CompuServe, Prodigy, America Online, all those people are growing fast. I think that they are growing faster than the internet because I think an awful lot of the stuff that's on the internet is unquantifiable and evanescent. In 3 years' time, I think that will change. Up until then, I think if you want to find what's happening on the internet, go into the internet through one of these providers. I mean, by all means, run your Netscape, but you'll never find anything. Look at the internet. You get this wonderful thing, Netscape. It's push this, touch that. It's all magic. Fingers come up, you touch them, and somebody says, have you heard there's something wonderful on a Nature magazine? And you say, well, what's its URL? Without its URL, you're lost. How can you find it?
It's that's a 60-character string.
Gibberish. HTTP // : rubbish. So it's going to be a while before that works. Even if you didn't have to do that, finding a site on the internet is Well, if they won't give you the URL, you never find it. There's no way of finding it. So there's a bit of a way to go before the internet is sweet and money. And of course, we all know about the security aspects. The other thing that's worth mentioning about the internet is that I think it's going to be a while before there are known, reliable, established blue chip internet suppliers. The problem at the moment is that the telecoms authorities are not providing enough bandwidth for the use that we would like to provide. It's not they don't have it, they've got it. I saw some figures suggesting that if you count all the dark fibre under the Atlantic and around, the current situation is that something like 80% of the available bandwidth is not even being used.
Really?
And the trend is steeply upwards. So by this time next year, it'll be 95% unused. And the only reason for that is that they don't want to start cutting the prices they charge, these are the telcos, per bandwidth. Now, we can talk about that in detail some other time if you like, but trust me, it's going to be interesting.
Yes.
What it does mean, though, is that people who buy bandwidth and sell it on the internet are people who are living in very thin margins. They haven't been around a long time. Some of them are not financially stable. And some of them are not financially well organized, which is not quite the same thing, but it's equally disastrous. For example, a few weeks ago, a lot of the people who go to the Siberia cyber cafe arrived one Friday evening to find that the network wasn't there. And a most almighty cock-up had occurred. I mean, I couldn't begin to explain it. I know pretty much what happened with one man who was a non-executive director of one company, a director of another one, managing director of a third, booked a feed through Pipex. Pipex sent the bill to the first company of which he was a non-executive director. They didn't know who he was. I mean, how many accounts people know who the non-executive directors are? Yeah. So this thing arrives for Fred Bloggs at so-and-so. They've never heard of so-and-so. They don't know who Fred Bloggs is. They file it under, I wonder what we do with this. 9 months later, they owed £9,000. Fred Bloggs, of course, not his name, had paid £9,000 to the intermediate company, who wondered why he'd given them this money. It must be for the software. They were also providing software. Well, it was more money than they thought they were getting for the software, so they were reasonably happy.
Yes.
So everybody was sitting there being very patient, admirably patient and unfussed. Pipex weren't getting any money. Pipex kept sending faxes to these people who wondered why, and to him, who'd written a check and couldn't see why either. So they all sat around waiting for the final demand. Eventually Pipex thought, and pulled the plug. BBC was supposed to go around the next day and do a live radio show. It got very embarrassing. But for all the users, it was doubly embarrassing because now Pipex are out. These people are now going through BT. All the domain names have changed. Who are you? I'm Guy Kewney at kicks.compulink.co.uk. Whose little dog are you? If you suddenly stop me being that, all the people who try and know where I am, what's your URL? Well, it used to be something I'd tell you if I knew my URL. You know, it's not going to work. It's the old trick of, you know, here's your new car, the keys are in the ignition. Oh, by the way, we've locked the car.
Guy Kewney, I wanted to ask you about the Intel P6 and Windows 95 and all sorts of things. I'm afraid we're out of time. I hope you'll come back to see us again.
Another time, Steve.
Okay. In the meantime, thank you very much.
Thanks for inviting me.
As ever, if you're interested in any of the products that we featured on Video Interface, then write the name of the product and your name and address on the reply paid card and send it back to us. That's it for April 1995. We'll see you again in June. Until then, bye-bye.